I titled this video Eric Adams's MLK moment. It's not really an MLK moment, but I just thought that was a funny caption for what he said. I can't wait to play the clip because I personally found it absolutely hilarious. Shout out to Mayor Eric Adams. Keep up the good work over there. And then I'll play a clip of Trump saying that Ukraine will not join NATO, which is a huge shift from what a lot of other establishment politicians have been trying to do. Then I want to cover the Romanian elections where the guy who won the election is being targeted and investigated, and it's very interesting. And also, I want to read a James Lindsay tweet where he says, even if the Epstein information comes out, people are going to get carried away and it's going to be a BLM moment. Really weird stuff from weirdo James Lindsay. So we're going to get into that. God bless you guys. Dreamer Podcast starts now. And I just want to let you know I'm working on a longer piece that's taken me a lot of time to come up with when it comes to a different topic. So I'm going to be editing that today for a more in-depth video, although this will be pretty in-depth as well. Dream Rare Podcast starts now. Thank you guys for being here. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah. What's going on, everybody? We got YouTube in the house. We got Facebook in the house. Let's see. Giovanna, Tracy, Wyatt, Sochi from Tucson, Arizona. Boone said, I've been watching your videos for 8 years now. Thank you so much for being here. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if everything looks and sounds good. Yeah, 8 years. That's a good. I feel like I owe you. I feel like I owe you a free hat or something watching that long. But thank you, Boone. Once I get the thumbs up in the chat, I'm going to start the video. Make sure I know until I get this plugged into my Ethernet cord. Sometimes recently the connection's been wonky. And for those wondering, I'm very close to my new setup. So probably within a week or two, I'm going to have some videos that you've never seen before with even higher quality. So that's what it's going to be. And then let's see. Someone said I forgot how long I've been here, but it was before COVID. That's what's up. Veronica celebrates 13 months of membership. All right, let's start it up. So I'm just going to play this clip of Eric Adams. I was debating whether to play it or not because, he says a word which used to not be historically offensive. It used to be normal. Now it's considered outdated and offensive. I'm not offended, but it's just with Facebook and YouTube. I don't own these websites. I feel like they've censored me for less, but this is a newsworthy story. I saw other people posting the clip, and personally, I thought it was like the funniest thing I've seen all day. In fact, I can't wait to hear it again. So here's Mayor Eric Adams having what I consider his Martin Luther King Jr. Moment.
So this is a biblical moment. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid? I'm running my race right now.
Dude, give it up for that's our guy now. He's just like, are you stupid? Oh man, I love that. I mean, I might even just run it back for the comedic value. Of course, though, if you're offended, this isn't funny at all. So it's actually hate speech to laugh at this, but I got to run that back. Hold on.
So this is a biblical moment. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them.
Oh man, I feel like he's in his bag. He's locked in. Our guy is locked in, ready to go. The Democrats are breathing down his neck because he won't just harbor a bunch of illegal immigrants. And he's like, y'all want me to leave? Are you stupid? I mean, I'm sure he talks like that privately, as do a lot of people, as far as, and like they just put on a suit and act real proper. So he had his little moment where he reverted back to the streets. New York City is the home and the founding of hip hop. He's getting his rapper on a little bit, just kind of stepping into it. I mean, what can I say that wasn't already said? I mean, I just thought it was hilarious. I don't think it's really an MLK moment, but who knows? Maybe this is his rise to becoming the next Malcolm X or Marcus Garvey, perhaps. Who knows? Eric Adams, I don't follow all his policies, but as far as Democrat mayors, he's got to be the most moderate that I've seen. He's the only one that's not like batshit insane on every single, I would say Democratic stance. So it seems like the second he comes out and says one thing reasonable, then they just want to throw him to the wolves. And this is why, I don't even really communicate. It's not, I could talk to liberals and leftists and I don't really judge individuals by their politics. I don't care. But when it comes to the group thing on that side, it's like you can't be on that side if you're right about anything. At least on the right, they'll call you names. You'll get kicked out and blacklisted a little bit, but you could still kind of exist in the sphere of conversation. Eric Adams, it's like they're throwing legal stuff at him. They're trying to do all these sort of things, and the press is giving him bad press. I think it's because he's just not harboring illegal immigrants, and he realizes that it's not good for New York City to do so. So good luck. Maybe in 2 years, this is my prediction, Eric Adams will be wearing a MAGA hat. He'll be doing Fox News appearances, selling some sort of book called like The Man Who Stepped Into the Red or something like that. And, Sean Hannity will have him on, throw him a little Nerf ball. And then all the boomers will buy the book. They'll be like, dang, I got to get this book. I got to get this Eric Adams classic. Maybe not, but I just think it's funny to talk about. Speaking of things that aren't funny to talk about, but I'm just trying to do some sort of really weak transition here, which I get away with because, I'm my own boss, so they can't get mad at me for that really bad transition. Here's Trump and JD Vance talking about how Ukraine will not be joining NATO. This is a good energy discussion here. I like this video as well.
Our equipment, that would have been over very quickly.
What concessions would you like to see? What concessions would you like to see?
Oh, I don't want to tell right now, but I can tell you that NATO you can forget about. I think that's probably the reason the whole thing started. And I think, JD, we can say that. Do you have a statement on that? You've been very much involved. I gave him the beauty.
Great. Maybe the hardest question, sir. I mean, look, as the president said, we're not going to do the negotiation in public with the American media. He's going to do it in private with the president of Russia, with the president of Ukraine, and with other leaders. And I think that's how this has to go. I
like the dynamic that Trump and JD Vance have. It's a very Trump is older and he's definitely he's the alpha. And then JD Vance, very respectful, knows his place, just kind of slips in, is very witty. This is what a lot of us voted for, not just this. There's a lot of reasons people voted for Trump. But, on my show, I try to be very reasonable and honest. And maybe sometimes I try too hard to please both sides because everybody gets mad at you. But there's people that like Trump and love what he's doing. And, they don't want anyone to do journalism that points out anything that he's not doing. And then on the other side, you have people that hate Trump, including right-wingers that hate Trump. And they're like, how dare you vote for him? I hate you because you voted for him. But the truth is somewhere in the middle where, yes, he is doing a lot of great stuff. I noticed that. I appreciate it. That's why I voted for him. And then, yes, also there are things that he's really not doing. And I see that as well. But I just don't believe you could say he's doing nothing or he's not doing anything because, this NATO conversation with Ukraine, this is a huge deal. Of course, you have Israel-Palestine. That's a huge deal. You have illegal immigration. That's a huge deal. You have inflation. That's a huge deal. There's all these topics that are really important. And, I knew that Trump was better on Russia and Ukraine than Biden. And even though I do think Trump plays ball with some people, obviously, he is different. I personally believe this is why they tried to kill him. I mean, I don't know if you're supposed to say that, but I just did. So whatever. If you look at the second guy who was in the trees, he had served in Ukraine. He was an American who was in Ukraine to recruit former terrorist members to it's some really weird stuff. But it's if you look at Trump and you're like, okay, when does he play with the deep state? When does he play with the establishment? How is he not a threat? But then you're like, how is he a threat? Because clearly, maybe it's a total theater. Maybe they're just trying to create a false dynamic. There's a lot of that. But there are people that really don't like Trump. And when you look at his, policy with Russia and Ukraine, I believe that they knew from the start that he was not going to do the war that they wanted to do. Whether, whatever Bernie Sanders, he's constantly being like, the 1%, and he's such a fraud, but he's like, here's my Bernie impression. He goes, Vladimir Putin is a dictator. There is no middle ground. Russia started the war. Russia invaded. It's like, all right, Bernie Sanders, just, go home. Go to one of your 3 vacation spots and just whatever. Maybe you only have 1 vacation spot, 3 homes. I don't care how many homes you have. You just suck anyway, even if you lived in a box. With that being said, Bernie tries to say, this war started immediately when Russia invaded Ukraine. You have to be either dumb or brainwashed to believe that and be like, this entire timeline of Russia, Ukraine just started then. It didn't start 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5. It just started right then. I'm not saying Russia is not complicit at all. It's just, if you look at the United States involvement in Ukraine, the revolution of dignity, the insurrection that killed dozens of people, injured hundreds of people, the switching of the leaders, Lindsey Graham flying to the country, giving them weapons, basically declaring war on Russia before Trump even got in office. There's a lot of American involvement in Ukraine, and everybody knows that. So when it came to this war that they were really trying to slowly kind of like wage, they knew Trump wasn't going to play ball. This is, if you look back at everything they threw at Trump the first term, what was it? Russia collusion. Why did they say he was working with Russia? Because they knew that he wasn't going to do what they wanted to do. The deep state, as they call it, they don't want you to be able to vote your way out of certain situations. Like, you're not supposed to have a vote. In general, we don't, there's certain topics we can't vote our way out of. And I talk about them all the time. But when there is a president that actually will change foreign policy, someone like a Tulsi Gabbard, she's not president, but it's like, why did she get the worst press in the Democratic stage? She was the best candidate by far. Why did she get the worst press? Because it's not about who's better for the country. It's about who's better for the people who run the world and who's better for the foreign policy. And Tulsi Gabbard, just like Trump, had spoken out against foreign policy, specifically in Syria and Ukraine, which is the same thing Trump did. So they never wanted Trump to win, I believe, for that reason. It's not for that. Like, everyone's like, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. He's such an outsider here. It's sort of, but also sort of not. He kind of plays ball. But the topic he doesn't is Russia and Ukraine. And look what happened. As soon as he got out of office, that war started. When he was in office, there was an attempt to take him out using Russia collusion narratives and Ukraine impeachment. Back when we never thought about Ukraine or Zelensky, like nobody ever even thought about who's Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump was getting impeached based on a conversation he had with them. This was in the works for years. Bernie Sanders, old and a fraud. And this is why they hate Trump. So the fact that he's in office saying that Ukraine is not going to join NATO, it's a big deal. Like, Trump deserves criticism for some things. I believe that he needs some pressure from his base to do the right thing because he's surrounded by donors and people like Lindsey Graham. However, you got to give credit where it's due, and he's not exactly the same. He's very similar. He's not above scrutiny, but this is a huge deal, and this would not have happened with Joe Biden. I don't believe this is the biggest thing that makes Trump a threat, in my opinion. And my opinion is obviously based off a lot of research, and I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't think it was true. Speaking of things I wouldn't be saying if I didn't think they were true, James Lindsay is a clown, and he seems like he's running this weird PR campaign when it comes to the Epstein files. I want to show you a tweet that is just so ridiculously bizarre that it's worth, looking at. He said, whatever role Israeli intelligence had, if any, with the Epstein operations, and there's likely to be a significant role played, the propaganda that will result from its exposure will be incredible, dishonest, and extremely divisive. George Floyd level division will follow. So how do you read this? Because to me, it just seems like he's kind of running cover. He's like, yeah, the Epstein files might come out, and yeah, Israeli intelligence might have played a role, but I mean, the propaganda is going to be worse than the information, and it's going to really, it's going to turn into like a George Floyd level, right? Like, why would people George Floyd over information about who Epstein probably worked for? Like, it's like the guy's running a PR team for the Epstein files. He's like, yeah, I mean, like,
there might be a connection there, but the connection's not the story. That's the woke right, like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. They're going to want to talk about that information because it's like, they're just divisive and anti-Semitic. But I mean, the real story is going to be the propaganda that comes out and the George Floyd woke right being upset that a foreign country was blackmailing our politicians. I mean, it's a real story. I'm James Lindsay. I mean, come on, man. I'm part of the real right. Me, Seth Dillon, and Konstantin Kizin. We're like fighting the woke right by mysteriously just constantly lying about everything and smearing the best people that aren't completely controlled. I mean, it's just a total spontaneous coincidence. I'm like James Lindsay, man. I mean, it's like, what? It's running cover for the. Hey, don't look over there, guy. Yeah, I mean, the Epstein information might come out, bro, but I mean, it's nothing really worth getting really upset about. I mean, it's just not a big deal. It's like these people. It's so funny, dude. It's so funny because it's like anytime I see something, I sound like I'm being a hater. So now I'm just being more patient with it. And then a year later, everybody sees what I see, and they're like, "Dang, you were right about that." Dude, I'm not a hateful person. I see value. But it's like, dude, that guy sucks so hard. He sucks so hard. And all the people that are trying to frame Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are also, I wouldn't say frame them, but frame them in a weird light. It's all the worst, sneakiest people. It's like, yeah, I could go on and on, but let's just end it there. Not the live stream, just that little bit. I wanted to talk about the Ukrainian president. And speaking of that whole James Lindsay op, calling everybody the woke right, this kind of fits into it. So in Romania, a right-wing leader who wasn't supposed to win the election, I'm just going to throw it out there. And I think this is very in line with Mike Benz. And he was talking about USAID and how the American apparatus of funding countries, they basically try to control elections around the world. Most of Europe is under the deep state control. The right puppet is in place, and they usually control the opposition as well. From all my research, I mean, I'm not the most researched about Romanian elections, and I'm not going to pretend to. So if you want to go listen and learn more, you can do that on your own. But from all of my research, it feels like somebody outside of that apparatus and somebody outside of the deep state, like EU, UN, whole vibe, won the election using TikTok and just basically social media. This guy who's far right won the election. And it seems like somebody who's far right that isn't controlled by the global establishment. Because usually you get a right-wing person, but they're also semi-controlled. So it's like, you can have a right-wing person in Italy, or you can have Geert Wilders or whatever. And I'm not saying that they're completely terrible. I think in many ways they're better for their country, but they're not true outsiders. They're like half outsiders, half insiders, half outsiders, half like, wait, he'll play ball on these topics. When it comes to the guy in Romania, it seems like this guy's like totally not one of those, semi-controlled opposition. So I looked at the Reuters article because I saw Elon Musk has been talking about it. And Elon said the guy who won the presidential erection, Hey, it's a serious news show. Stop laughing. Didn't Chuck Schumer say that one time? Oh man, presidential erection. I heard was in the White House. I heard he was just running through ladies, but that has nothing to do with this and but some say that that's true. Not me, I wouldn't say that. Speaking of presidential elections, in Romania, he won the election and potentially the erect. No, I'm just kidding. But he won the election. He's getting investigated / prosecuted, and they're not allowing him into office. So I clicked the article, right? I'm like, I got to learn about this guy. The first thing that I see is, far right-wing president of Romania is being accused and charged of anti-Semitism. And I'm like, oh, gee whiz, what a shocker, right? But I was like, really? That's what they're accusing him of, anti-Semitism? They're saying he supports anti-Semitic groups. They're accusing him of a few other things. But the first thing the Reuters thing said was like, he did all these things, but anti-Semitism. And I'm like, this is why I talk about this so much, and I want to explain this to people more in depth now in a way that's understandable. The reason I really didn't like when Daryl Cooper came on Tucker Carlson's show and he started talking about World War II And people like James Lindsay, Seth Dillon, Konstantin Kisin, all of the same usual suspects, they came out and they're like, oh, anti-Semitism, blah, 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 like just smearing them. We all know, all of us that work in media, especially conservative media, we all know that anti-Semitism can get you arrested and thrown in jail in foreign countries. We know that anti-Semitism can get you charged and prosecuted in foreign countries. Hate speech, words, including words that could be true. Like the truth could get you in trouble in foreign countries. The truth about immigration, the truth about LGBT, and just the truth about, race and religion can also get you in trouble in foreign countries. Like they make, hate speech a crime, but they never tell you whether it's true or not. Sometimes it's false and they just hate the lie that you said. Sometimes it's true and they hate the truth that you said. So when it comes to Daryl Cooper, someone said Carol Duper. That's funny. But when it comes to Daryl Cooper, this is the game that I believe the people that hated him and Tucker Carlson are playing. To me, it seems like they're furious that someone would dare speak what he's speaking, because you can't say that in England, you'll get arrested or you'll get charged. You can't say that in Germany, you'll get thrown in jail. You can't say that in Australia. Candace Owens is banned from Australia. You probably can't say it in Romania. This guy's getting charged in Romania with anti-Semitism because he likes certain leaders in Romanian history that they say are fascist, or they say are too far right, or they say are Nazi collaborators. They're smearing him as a Nazi collaborator because he likes some leader of Romania from the 1920s and 30s that I don't even know that much about. But I know the game that they're playing. It's a crime in almost every one of our allied countries. In America, it's not a crime. So the proper response would be like, yeah, I might not agree with him or whatever, but like, I get why he's saying that or this or that. No, these people are jumping down their throats. And I believe there's a huge push, not just from those people and not necessarily from those people, but others, where they're just like furious that it's not a crime in America. It's like, oh my God, Americans are allowed to question history. Americans are allowed to talk about World War II. Americans are allowed to, look at stuff. Americans are allowed to, talk about this and race and religion. Now, Americans, it's like, it's not allowed anywhere else in the world. So it's like the real conversation. And if you listen to the interview with Daryl Cooper, he says that. He says, I talk about this topic because for most of the last century, talking about this topic gets you thrown in jail. And that's why it's the most fruitful place to look, because it's the place you're not allowed to look. It's the place you're not allowed to talk about. And there's a certain pattern that I've noticed in almost every Western country that I've talked about. They're all passing anti-Semitism hate speech laws. They all use the same exact definition. That definition includes noticing patterns in banking and media and funding politicians. So if you say George Soros funds the left, it's anti-Semitic because he's Jewish. If you say Miriam and Sheldon Adelson, rest in peace Sheldon, but Miriam Adelson, if you say that they're one of the top donors to the Republican Party, they'll say it's anti-Semitic. If you say that Mike Bloomberg owns a media company, it's anti-Semitic. So it's like, Mark Zuckerberg, almost every company, Larry Ellison. Think of a company, and the chances are that the guy who runs it is Jewish. I'm not being hateful, successful, intelligent, hardworking. I'm not trying to take anything away. I'm just being honest. It's like, think about OpenAI, Sam Altman, like literally everywhere. Who runs the NBA? It's like these patterns are everywhere. So it's like, but if you just talk about it, now it's anti-Semitism because it's like, oh, you just hate George Soros because he's that race, or and then you just hate that. It's like, it's not about hate. It's just about figuring out what's going on and just having conversations about it. But what I'm trying to say is there's anti-Semitism hate speech laws being passed through Europe and America with the same exact definition. You can't talk about patterns in banking. You can't talk about patterns in media. You can't say that people are funding politicians that are funding politicians. You can't say that a certain group of people killed Jesus, which is what the Bible said. You can't say this. You can't say that. So in Europe, it's a crime. In America, it's not a crime, but people are trying to make it a crime. There's a I think it's called World Jewish Congress or something. The leader of it's like, we need to make this more, like he's on camera basically being like, we need to push these further and further and further. Thomas Massey comes out. He speaks the truth about foreign aid. You have left and right-wing Jewish organizations trying to kick him out of power and use unlimited resources, including Republican groups using unlimited resources to try to kick Thomas Massey out of power. It's like, there's a reason I talk about this all the time. I'm not hateful at all. Look at what happened in Romania. There's a guy who's not controlled by the establishment. He used social media to win power. He's not a global puppet. He doesn't align himself with all the other European pawns. And they're using anti-Semitism and the accusation of anti-Semitism to try to kick him out of power. And then he says that it's the Bolshevik communists coming after him. He says it's the Bolshevik communists that are coming after me. In most of the Western world, you have a choice between left and right. But 95% of the time, the left acts like Bolsheviks and communists. The right are Zionists. They're not really, in my opinion, like nationalist right-wingers that are really for their people. It's like they're a Zionist. You either get the Zionist right or you get the the Bolshevik left. And if someone comes in like this guy who doesn't seem like he's either one, maybe he is a Zionist. I don't know, and I don't even really care. But it's like them smearing him as an anti-Semite and not allowing him to take power tells me he's not part of the establishment left. He's accurately pointing out their big are, especially in that part of the world. It's like way more part of their history that they understand, because that's the region where a lot of the Bolsheviks reigned. I don't know specifically if Romania is like a main target, but they're close to the countries that they have more power in. Maybe they did have power in Romania. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to really reread that part. I'm not a Romanian expert, but it's like that this is a trend all over the world. And anytime you don't play ball, they use this to tear you down. Elon Musk, right? He's very cozy with most powerful Zionists. He's very pro Netanyahu. He's pro Trump, right? Elon Musk, he plays pretty straight and narrow, but at the same time, sometimes he says real stuff. What did they use against Elon Musk to try to end his company? They called him anti-Semite. They said his platform was harboring anti-Semitism. That's how they tried to push the boycott of Twitter. Just Google it. Google Elon Musk anti-Semitism, Elon Musk Twitter boycott. That's the word they used to try to take his company down. He said he noticed that certain people were pushing anti-white hatred. That's what he said. He said, he noticed certain Jewish groups are pushing anti-white hatred. And, he had to, well, I don't know if he had to, but he went on an apology tour. And then he said, I'm so sorry. I don't know what got into me. My bad. I shouldn't have said that. And maybe he really feels that way. I don't know. Maybe he was just wilding out at night, or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he meant what he said, and he's just, under such immense pressure that it's not worth it to keep saying it. It's just better to stick to what you're good at, like the Doge stuff and running his rocket companies, etc. But without talking about this too much, this is why I talk about it. I'm not trying to make a fringe issue a big issue because I can't get over it. It's literally the way the Western world works. If you run a big company, it's the word they use to take you down. If you're trying to travel the world, it's the word they use to stop Candace Owens from going to Australia. If you're a Romanian president who doesn't play ball, it's what they do to try to charge you. You can't understand modern politics if you don't understand Bolshevism, Zionism, and the real left and right dynamic. That's not like libtards versus the MAGA right. Yeah, sure. On the surface, it's that. But when you get deeper, it's what I said it is. Speaking of which, I'm doing a longer form video on this, so I don't want to give too much away, but I'm not going to make it a podcast. So for those who listen to my podcast, there was a case in Australia that there's a reporter, I think his name is Chris Menenham, and I think his I'm trying to think off the top because I don't have it. His publication is called, I think, Information Liberation, and he's a really good journalist. If you want to look at stories that you don't see most Republican media publishing, he's the guy. He definitely posts stuff that I've never heard, and he's seems very clear. He published it before I saw anyone publish it, and then I saw WikiLeaks post about it on their public Twitter. But there was a situation where somebody had security clearance in Australia, and they were Jewish, and Australia revoked their security clearance and said that they were a threat because they thought that they were working with Israel, or that there was a high chance that they could work with Mossad. And there's a reason that it's really, I think it's a very crucial point in world history, because I haven't heard a story like this in a while. And it's, the guy basically said, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have his exact quotes. The guy who got his security clearance taken away, he said, most Jews, or if not all Jews, this is what he said. I'm not saying it's true, but I'm just paraphrasing. He said, most Jews, if not all Jews, have some sort of loyalty to Israel. Some have more than others. Others have just natural loyalty, and he said, if you take my security clearance away, that essentially is anti-Semitism, and that might be a threat to all Jews. And I don't know if he's going to sue the government, or I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but this is the dynamic of what I'm saying. Somebody had security clearance and they were like, we think you're working with Israel. And he didn't say, no, I'm not, or like, no, that's not true. I mean, maybe he did, but his answer was essentially, I really should have the quote so I try to be accurate, but he's like, we all have a little loyalty to Israel, and you shouldn't do this to us because then you're offending all of us. So it's like, it's not like, oh, I'm super loyal to Australia and I would never do that with a foreign country. It's like, no, we all do that. So, you shouldn't really go there. That's kind of the dynamic of what's going on. In American politics, you don't have that dynamic. I don't want to get too much into it because I have a longer video with proof and stuff, but, Trump flew back. There's a foreign spy named Jonathan Pollard. He was at the end of his term and Trump pardoned his handler essentially. And when Trump pardoned his handler and he got out of jail, Jonathan Pollard, who was one of the most damaging spies in American history, and he really hurt American national security a lot. That's why he was arrested. He flew back to Israel. And if you look up how he flew back to Israel, he flew on Trump's biggest donor's jet. At the time, the GOP's biggest donor was Miriam Adelson and Sheldon Adelson. Now Elon might have surpassed them. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how much Peter Thiel donates either, but at the time that was the biggest GOP donor, and the foreign spy flew back to the country on Trump's donor's jet. And you almost hear no press about it because nobody in American press cares, because our country doesn't think like Australia. They don't think like, oh, you might be sharing secrets and you might be loyal to another country. That's wrong. In America, it's the exact opposite. It's like, you're hateful if you notice anybody has dual loyalty. You can't say people have dual loyalty. It's anti-Semitism. Like, it's like this country is so co-opted at this point. It's almost like you get more in trouble in Republican politics if you're not working for another country. It's like, it's like, wait, you're just working for America, Thomas Massey? You're not working on behalf of a foreign country? We're going to use all of our money to make sure you can't take Mitch McConnell's spot. It's like, so this, without dragging on about it, look up the Australian case about the guy who got kicked out of security clearance, because it is like a landmark case, in my opinion, when it comes to the Western world, our allies, and how we view people that work for a certain foreign country, because there's a lot of different opinions and beliefs about it. Speaking of which, someone had mentioned something on my post, and I love to have conversations about this topic, not just talking to myself. I love to have discussions and debates with people. So I might bring someone on later this week because he doesn't understand what I'm saying. To give you a little bit more context, JD Vance tweeted something along the lines of, I was talking to this Ukrainian, and this Ukrainian guy said, you're bad for my country. And JD Vance's response was like, what do you mean your country? Your country should be America, not Ukraine. When you come to America, you should assimilate, leave your hyphen behind. And if you come to America saying that's my country, essentially go back to your country. JD Vance didn't say exactly that. I'm paraphrasing once again, but he's like, if you come to America, be loyal to America. You understand what I'm saying? And I was like, wow, I love that tweet from JD Vance. I really like JD Vance. I like him. I think he's a great vice president, a great speaker. Instinctually, I like his energy. I think he seems pretty genuine. He's a politician, but I like him. With that being said, I said, man, that's a great thing that he said. If he said that about Israel, his career would be over. If he said that about somebody that was a Jewish American that had loyalty to Israel, he would have to go on an apology tour. He would get bad press. Honestly, his political career, maybe not over, because people would probably like him more for the most part, but it's like in the Republican Party, you cannot say that about Israel. You can only say that about Ukraine. Someone commented when I responded to that, and he said, well, there's a difference between Ukraine and Israel. This is our greatest ally. This is that. This is that. Okay, sure. So I invited him on the podcast to have a conversation with me, because if you notice, I love talking about this topic because nobody ever wants to debate me or have a friendly conversation about it. They know what they know from PragerU and Ben Shapiro and Fox News. Like, they have all these talking points in their head, but they've never heard the counter argument. I've heard the counter argument. I've heard both sides. I've studied this. I've watched documentaries. I'm very well versed on this topic, and I understand both sides. Most people that get annoyed when I say stuff like this, they think they know what they're talking about. But if you really think you know what you're talking about, come on the show. I'll be friendly. let's chat about it, and let's see whose ideas, flourish when they're challenged. So that's some things that were interesting to me. Let me know in the comment section if there's any stories in the last week that you want me to weigh in on. There's been a lot of stuff, and overall, I'm pretty pumped with the Trump administration. I know a lot of people are. I think most people are happy with him. Obviously, some people are not, but he's handling biz. He's obviously not doing everything I want him to do, but I'm just enjoying the energy of it. Like with Kamala and Biden, it's just like everything's dark. They lie about everything. They're not creative. They're not innovative. Nothing's new. Like, I just feel like it's stagnant. With Trump, it's interesting. Obviously, he's not going to do everything. He needs to be called out on some things. But with Trump, it's just like, it's like there's new ideas. He's doing this. He's saying this. There's so much more exciting, interesting stuff. Everything's a news story. There's ways to actually communicate with people in office. Like, they actually are listening to some extent. So, I'm enjoying his presidency quite thoroughly. Some are not, but I am. So I can't really, relate. Someone said joint task force headed by Dan Bongino. I know he's going to be the FBI deputy director, but I don't know to what task force he's on or anything. Guys and women's sports. Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think guys should play in women's sports and then just beat women, and then we don't have to watch women's sports anymore. We could just watch guys' sports again. So that would be pretty epic. I'm just kidding. Just joking. But at the same time, yeah, I think Trump's got that under control, right? He's like, excuse me, lady from Maine, Miss Woman. If you don't take the boys out of the girls' sports, I'm going to cut your federal funding. Oh, I'm not going to do it. I'm from Maine. I'm a liberal. I mean, I want them to play together. And Trump's like, you're not listening to me. You're not a big star. You're going to be voted out. Enjoy politics, because I don't think you're going to be there very long, okay? Oh my gosh. I mean, I watch Rachel Maddow, and I don't see a difference between the locker rooms. Everybody else does. So you're not going to be there very long, okay? Okay, listen to Daddy Trump. Put the boys in the boys' room and the girls in the girls' room. Okay, it's very simple. It's not that simple. I mean, I got a liberal arts degree from Harvard, and I can't tell the difference. I mean, I look and I just see human beings. I'm a two-spirited gender. That's really gay. Okay, I'm not being mean to the gays. Okay, Rick Grinnell, very gay. Caitlyn Jenner, gay, straight. I'm not sure what it is because it's just confusing at this point. But Caitlyn Jenner loves Trump, so. We love the gays over at Trump's administration, but we don't love putting the boys in the girls' room and the tampons in the boys' room. But how are the boys going to stop their periods without a tampon? I mean, it's like, who votes for these people? Like, you listen to some of these people and you're like, there's really people that like, what? I have a PhD from Yale, and I'm way smarter than these conservatives who literally build my houses, build my cars, do everything that actually matters in this country. Well, I just sit here and play crossword puzzles. But I'm going to vote for the intellectual woman who's really interesting, and she's going to put the tampons back in the boys' room. It's like, it's just crazy to me that people do that, but I know why. Like, psychologically, there's a lot of situationals going on, but I don't want to really get into it. Do my Dr. Burks. Dr. Burks, I mean, I wear a scarf to hide all the holes in my neck from my vaccines. Usually I love a vaccine to the neck. They say put it in the arm. I say just put it in my jugular. I wear this scarf around my neck to hold my head together like a jack-o'-lantern. But I think we need more Pfizer. Christy Noam High, that's pretty funny. Like, did y'all need for? I'm not reading that. That's an inappropriate comment. So hold on. Let's see. There's a very different vibe from Trump this time around. I haven't put his finger on it. I agree. And, some people will say that vibes don't exist, but it's just not true. If you say vibes don't exist, you just can't read vibes. Like, I'm not going to explain it, but the vibes are different. JD Vance, I'm not asking you to trust JD Vance or not talk about his connections to Peter Thiel. I'm not asking that, but I'm just saying the vibes are better. The energy's better. Him on Theo Vaughn. It's just a good time. Speaking of vibes, I don't care what people say. Vivek Ramaswamy has a very sneaky, bad, fake vibe. So does, by the way, Vivek's not that bad, but like Dan Crenshaw, dude, Dan Crenshaw has evil vibes. Did you see what he said to Tucker Carlson? He threatened him and then he said he didn't, but like Dan has those psychopath vibes. Like he's not like, oh, I hate Tucker Carlson. He's like, if I saw him, I would do this to him. You're like, dude, Dan Crenshaw is a bad, 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 bad person. Dan Crenshaw makes Vivek Ramaswamy look like a saint. You know what I'm saying? Vivek's not that bad, but like Dan Crenshaw is a bad person. He's probably like the worst person in Congress. He's that bad. With that being said, Vivek, I'm not even gonna push it because I don't care that much, but his vibes are scammer. His vibes are not trustworthy. His vibes are fake. Like his whole persona is fake. And it fell apart on Twitter 2 months ago because eventually, it can't last forever. But here's the thing. I've always said this, like, if it's Vivek versus a Democrat, Vivek's probably the better option. I think he has a role in politics and he'll probably win. Maybe he won't win. I'm not really sure how it'll go, but like, it's like if I was tasked with voting for, Tom Cotton or a Democrat, I don't know. Like maybe I'd vote for Tom Cotton. Maybe I just sit home. I don't like Tom Cotton. His vibes are not like, it's not his vibes. He's just a phony. I don't like Tom Cotton. With Vivek or a Democrat, maybe I'd vote for Vivek, like I'd listen to his policies and I'd be like, I'd vote for him. I'm not trying to hate on the guy forever or whatever, but it's just like he just doesn't have a good vibe. He's a sneak. And to me, it's just I can't believe everyone doesn't see it, but maybe I just have good discernment. But it's like I'm not trying to make an enemy with the guy. I'm sure he hates me at this point because I interviewed him and gave him a tough interview, and I'm not a fan of him. But good luck to him. Hope he does well. Hope he makes Ohio better, and he's got everybody endorsing him. I can't listen to him talk. Like it's just I get bad vibes from it. But what did Vivek do on Twitter 2 months ago? Him and Elon just got into an H-1B conversation, and I think Vivek just made tens of millions of people hate him because he was basically saying the problem with American culture is that we glorify the prom king and not the nerd. And, I get what he was trying to say, but it just came across as very douchey and anti-American. And, America needs to be criticized. It's not like our country's perfect, but the way he was criticizing it just sounded really inauthentic. And it's like he's saying that we should not glorify the prom king as if the prom king's always dumb, which is not true, and just glorify the nerds. Meanwhile, it's like then he's at a NASCAR race and he's like, America. It's like, dude, he's just cosplaying. Like he wears these like little like American jackets. Like he's a pharmaceutical billionaire who ran as a Republican, and now nobody even looks into what he did with his companies or who he was like before a year ago. I don't want a pharmaceutical billionaire. I don't trust these people. But I think to win an election, it's not Twitter. So it's like on Twitter, Vivek is very unpopular right now, and he's having a PR crisis. On Facebook, the boomers don't really care. It's like and I'm not trying to be rude. I know this comes across as like condescending sometimes, but Facebook boomers, they live in a different reality than Twitter. Like Twitter, because it's more free speech, because there's more younger people, because people are allowed to share and post videos, the conversation is years ahead of where the Facebook Republicans are. It's changing. I'm noticing my Facebook comments. A lot of people are getting a lot edgier and saying a lot more real stuff. But it's like, if you go on Twitter, Vivek is very unpopular because, he kind of stepped in it and made tens of millions of people not like him and not trust him and see through him. But on Facebook, it's like, I'm not trying to be rude once again, but it's like, these are people that thought John McCain was cool. These are people that thought Mitt Romney was cool. These are people that watch Sean Hannity and Mark Levin. Like my Facebook community, like they think Mark Levin is a trustworthy person. You're not like, if you trust Mark Levin and Vivek Ramaswamy and Sean Hannity, it's like, who can't trick you at that point? It's like, I'm not trying to be condescending, but it's like, these are people that are fully grown adults with the mind of a baby. It's like a baby boomer is a perfect name because they're infantile in the mind. Like they get tricked by the most obvious the most obvious con artists, and they just can't see it. It's like, it's way too easy to trick baby boomers. But yeah, I don't know. The reason I was talking about this is because Twitter is not necessary. Like, it helps, but it's like, who's voting in Ohio? Is it people on Twitter in a different? No, it's like, it's going to be a lot of boomers. So he could win Ohio, I think, for sure. He could also lose, though. I don't know. It'll probably be a pretty close race. We'll see. Politics is interesting, but I wish him well. I'm not trying to hate on the guy. It's just I can't bring myself. Like, it's the same with Ben Shapiro. Do I hate Ben Shapiro? No. I've never trusted Ben Shapiro because my IQ is not below 70 and I'm not a child. Like, obviously Ben Shapiro is not to be trusted, but some people love Ben Shapiro. He's very honest about certain topics. He's definitely not a dumb person. He can be very intelligent and articulate, but I could just see right through Ben Shapiro. I know how sneaky he is. I know how he uses big words to try to sound like he's more intellectual than he is. He hides behind, oh, you're being hateful. And like, he doesn't really ever challenge himself except for with the left. You know, he pushed, these are just some things I don't like about Ben Shapiro. I know Ben Shapiro's intentions. I know what his foreign policy is. He smeared Ron Paul when, like, everybody knew Ron Paul was the truth, and he smeared him as an anti-Semite and exaggerated about Ron Paul to try to stop him. He was pro-vaccine mandate in 2020, right before the pandemic. He made a video saying why vaccine mandates are okay for children, and he said basically having an unvaccinated kid is like poisoning a river, and then it infects the whole community. But then he did, come out against vaccine mandates during COVID, which I respect. He said he got lied to by Pfizer and the government. Like, he's just not like, I don't listen to fake people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm it's an insult to my intelligence. Like, when Bernie Sanders says it started when Russia invaded Ukraine, and it's that's an insult to my intelligence. I know the history of Ukraine and Russia. I know the history from 2014 on. I know about American involvement. And if you want me to be pro-Ukraine, you have to just be honest with me. Be like, yeah, we invaded. Yeah, we did this. Yeah, we got involved. I can deal with that. I understand America is an imperialist or whatever, but you can't sit and lie to my face and then expect me to agree with you. That's how I feel about Ben Shapiro. It's like, why would I listen to a news reporter who got COVID wrong, who tried to basically yell at Louis Farrakhan and trick black people into getting vaccinated because, oh, Louis Farrakhan's anti-Semitic. He's telling you not to get the vaccine. It's like, dude, I'm not dumb enough to listen to dumb content like that. And then he comes out and says that, he just got tricked by Pfizer and the government. You're a news reporter and you don't know the history of Pfizer corruption. You don't know how the FDA works in the revolving door. You don't know how the vaccine industry works. You don't know about the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. You've never listened to RFK talk years ago. You don't know about the PrEP Act. Like, it's not rocket science. It's all clear. You get what I'm saying. It's like, I don't hate Ben, but it's like when I say I don't like him, people are like, oh, you're just being mean or whatever. I don't think he's smart. I don't think he's honest. I think he's not dumb, but I think he convinces people that are naive that he's like highly intelligent, when in reality he's just extremely sneaky. He's like, got a PhD in sneakery. That's not intelligence. Like, oh, I got tricked by Pfizer and the government, but I'm really smart. You didn't get tricked. You ignored reality of how Pfizer and the government works. Imagine if I just reported what the government said. Dude, I wouldn't ever do that. Like, literally, my entire platform is like just trying to read through everything and telling you the truth. Like, it's not my fault, guys. I believe the government. Oh yeah, that's really good reporting. Just believe everything. That's journalism for you. Just believe what the government tells you about vaccines. Report what the government says. Trust everything the government says, and then 2 years later admit that you messed up. But it's not really your fault because we're just doing what the government said. I mean, that's not journalism. That's propaganda. You were doing propaganda, for the pharmaceutical industry and for the government. This wasn't this mysterious thing that couldn't be figured out. It was all right there. You ignored it, and then propaganda came out your mouth, and then you didn't apologize properly. You just said it's an honest mistake that you just believed Pfizer's data. Really? Yeah, cool. I'll just let me just do that then. Can I get a big audience too? I just believe Pfizer and the government. I mean, I'll just tell you what Pfizer says. How's that, guys? How's that for a show? But Ilhan Omar, look over there. Oh, Ilhan Omar. Oh, gotta trust him. It's wild. Let's see. I'll read a few more, and I'm gonna try to keep this under an hour. Maybe not though. Maybe I won't keep it under an hour. Who knows? Sometimes people watch this later and they're like, I don't want to watch an hour and a half. And I'm like, I don't expect you to. I appreciate it if you do, but I'm here live now. We have hundreds of people. It's a good time. You know, I'm in the moment. I'm not always just thinking about like in the future, like someone's like, how am I going to watch an hour and a half? I don't know. But if someone's live and we're riffing out, it's like, sometimes I don't want the show to end. Someone said, Laura said, you keep saying you're not trying to be condescending, though I dislike labels being put on individuals or a whole generation. You say I'm a boomer. You just lost a lot of my respect. I don't even know who you are. I like, if you're not a baby boomer on Facebook who gets tricked by Mark Levin, then you wouldn't get offended by that. But it's like, you're probably a baby boomer who gets tricked by Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin. So you're taking it personally. There's hundreds of people, or maybe not hundreds. I can't tell which platform people are watching on because there's more on YouTube, but it's like there's people on Facebook that are like, yeah, I know what he's talking about. I see it in the comment section. But it's like it's the baby boomers who get tricked by Mark Levin who are like, you're saying this about me. I'm not saying it about you if it doesn't apply to you. It might not. I just said 5 minutes ago that there's people in the comments like every day Facebook gets more awake. They're just like a little bit behind Twitter. If you were one of the awake people that's like ahead of the curve, then you would be like, yeah, I identify with that of what he said. I don't identify with the people he talked about there, but you're clearly getting offended because it probably does apply to you. Like, really, I don't get it. I watch Greg Gutfeld. I watch Mark Levin. I watch Sean Hannity. I listen to Ben Shapiro. I don't get what you're talking about. It's like, okay, that's fine. I mean, I understand everyone has a preference. I have friends who like Ben Shapiro and listen to him. It's just, you're going to be a couple of years behind on certain topics. And if you can't figure out, Ben's role in this at this point, then you're at least 5-6 years. I figured this out in like 2019. So I'm 6 years ahead. Let's see. Thoughts on Trump's 5 million gold card? Once again, I mean, I don't know, but it's interesting. Like everything about Trump is interesting. Biden's like just leaving the border open, doing nothing. Trump's like coming up with these innovative ideas, or somebody in his team is. $5 million for a gold card citizenship. It's better than jumping the border. I don't know. Like I'm not sure. It's interesting though. I want to think about it more before I really have an opinion. Let me tell you about the Doge thing, because Doge said they're going to give everybody $5,000 and it might only be 20% of the money they've taken back. Critics are saying it's socialism or just pay off the debt. Other people are saying, give me the money. Here's what I would say. I don't know that I'd call it socialism, because if he was just printing the money or taking it out of taxpayer money, then it would be socialism. The fact that he's getting this money back from money that was wasted. So it's like if America spends less money than it did a year prior, but gives everyone $5,000, I don't have really a huge problem with it, because here's the thing. If they don't give you the $5,000 and they just put it there, you're not really going to feel it that much. If he was just printing the money, then I would be like, no, that's a terrible idea. It's going to inflate the currency, but he's taking money back. So once again, it's an interesting idea. I don't need $5,000, but I'll take $5,000. I'll take it, and it's not coming from nothingness. Like, every year they steal your money. Someone's getting $1 billion and the currency doesn't hyperinflate. Someone's getting $1 trillion. Someone's getting $100 billion. Countries are getting, like, we're being robbed and they're giving the money to other people and we're still afloat. We're still able to afford stuff. Yeah, inflation's hitting, but I would be opposed to them printing money and giving me $5,000. I would be opposed to them just, using it out of the budget. But if they're literally just going to take $10 trillion back from someone that wasted it and get the money back and give me $5K of that they took back, and then they put the other 80% towards, paying off the stuff, I'd rather personally have the $5K than them just send it into the nothingness, because I don't think we're ever going to pay off the multi-trillion-dollar debt. I don't think it's possible. I don't even think it would work monetarily. Like, if it were a gold-backed system and we actually had the money that we printed and we actually had a way to do it, then I would be like, yeah, just pay it off and then inflation will go away. But it's not gold-backed. Like, we're so far gone that we're never balancing the books like we should balance the books. And I'm not saying we shouldn't try to some extent, but it's the way the monetary system works now is so complicated because they don't have the gold to back the money. They've printed so much money. They're playing a different algorithm and an equation to balance the books now. Someone said debt without consent is theft, isn't it? How do you go into debt without consent, though? I don't understand. But yeah, I guess you're talking about with the government. Taxation is pretty much theft. Credit card usury is very immoral and was not allowed by Christians and Muslims in the past. There's a lot of things that are not right with this country, but I don't know. It is what it is at this point. America needs to tie up the loose ends in the world and forge a path towards isolationism. Libertarians think that. I'm kind of in the middle where I'm not a total isolationist, but we need fair allies. For example, it's not fair that our greatest ally gets billions of dollars of taxpayer money, and in return we get anti-Semitism laws, and we're not allowed to talk about dual loyalty. Meanwhile, they outlaw dual loyalty. We're not allowed to think with our race what they think with their race. That's not fair. So I'm not about having no allies. I just think our greatest allies have a crazy lopsided deal, and they use their leverage over America to get the lopsided deal. And then they basically, shake down anybody and talk trash about anybody who notices. So I'm not an isolationist. I just want fair deals. If we have allies in the world, there's got to be benefit for both countries. It can't be 100% lopsided where it's like, Ukraine just gets our money. Dude, Ukraine is the worst ally we've ever had. I mean, people can say that about Israel. Some people will say that, but like with Ukraine, you give them hundreds of billions of dollars, and then it's like the second you stop giving them money, they just turn on you. They're like, "Oh, give it!" Like Zelensky is entitled to our money. In Israel, you give them billions of dollars, and the second Thomas Massey is like, "Hey, I don't agree with the speech law," they start lobbying against him, or at least people that are loyal to them lobby against him. It's like these are not great allies. Republicans are just brainwashed into thinking that if you listen to people like Mark Levin, and believe them, you're probably brainwashed into thinking Ukraine's a good ally. That guy pushes Lindsey Graham Democrat deep state propaganda when it comes to Ukraine. That Mark Levin is a fraud. I can't believe anybody trusts the guy. If you listen to these people about Israel too, you'll think it's the greatest alignmentship ever. And we're just crushing. It's like, here's my idea with Ukraine and Israel. It's like, Ukraine's a different story. I think Trump's handling it well. With Israel, it's like, we'll be your ally, but you gotta relax with all these like speech laws and calling everybody anti-Semitic all the time. And I know it's not specifically Israel doing it, but in our country, like we help them. Are they helping us? They write op-eds in the Wall Street Journal saying we should take their refugees. They're like, Europe and America should take our refugees. Why do they want us to take our refugees? Do you know why? Because they don't care. It's like, you take the refugees, you take the refugees, you give us money, you give us money, we'll give our people universal health care, you give us weapons, you'll get anti-Semitism speech laws and not be able to talk about us, and then we'll congratulate you. It's like, that's not a fair relationship. And Republican Zionist media has brainwashed tens of millions of people into thinking that it is. And I'm not someone that wants to be an isolationist. I just want a fair deal. I'm somebody that the Republican establishment and the Zionist media, essentially, I mean, for lack of a better term, doesn't like, because I'm not controlled. I like my country. I put America first. So I get smeared as an anti-Semite, just like Thomas Massey, just like anybody who puts like that word is used to basically make sure you can't make money or get positions or make it in politics or news, so they can insert somebody like a Ben Shapiro or a Mark Levin or a Seth Dillon or some of these people that don't say what you're saying. And it's like, nothing I'm saying is crazy. Nothing Thomas Massey's saying is crazy. Nothing Ron Paul was saying is crazy. It's just Ron Paul was an American citizen, a Christian libertarian Republican who prioritized America first. That's why Ben Shapiro smeared him as an anti-Semite. Go try to find Ben Shapiro's tweets about Ron Paul. He said that he was gripping his pencil like the neck of somebody of Ben Shapiro's ethnicity. That's how much of a fraud and an exaggerator Ben Shapiro is. He saw, what's his name? Ron Paul, who, by the way, is like a tiny, fragile, very not threatening person at all, holding a pen. And Ben Shapiro's like, oh my God, he's gripping his pencil like the neck of me. It's like, dude, But you can't say Ben Shapiro exaggerates because that's anti-Semitism. He just always tells the truth. He's just a truth teller. It's like, why do these people exist in the right wing and try to block any person that actually serves our country? If you can't figure out what's going on now, it can't possibly get more obvious. But people can't figure it out because they're so programmed by Zionist media and Republican media, which serves that agenda. I'm not saying Zionism is wrong. I'm just saying when it comes so strongly that we get speech laws, we can't talk about foreign aid, we can't try to strike a fair deal, we can't prioritize our country first like they do, we can't talk about loyalty in Congress like they do. It's like, this is not a fair deal. This is what's going on. It's the next step for people that don't get what I'm talking about, because if you can't get to this point, then you're never going to really get what's going on, because that's what's really going on. Did I see that 33-second video of Trump saying he's released high rises in Gaza and a big gold Trump statue? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't like that sort of rhetoric, but here's my thoughts about, since everybody cares, and I don't know, but here's my thoughts about with Gaza and Palestine. Like, I come at it from this perspective. I'm not Palestinian. I'm not Israeli. I don't have like any, I view it as like two countries. It's like Ukraine, Russia. I'm just viewing it like I don't feel, I'm not from there. With that being said, it's a very dicey situation. The Palestinians were obviously there, whether people say they weren't. And then the Israelis came in. They slowly took a lot of land. They treated the Palestinians horribly. And now they're trying to take all their land and basically kill them or throw them out. You could say that's not happening, but that's definitely happening. With that being said, it's like, now what's the solution? Like, do the Palestinians just want to stay and get killed? They're not really going to beat, I don't think, Israel. Like, I don't know. But maybe, I don't know, maybe they can outlast them like Afghanistan did and just stay there, and like eventually everyone gets tired. I'm not really sure. Like, I don't know. It's not a winning situation, but I don't think they should leave. But that's what Trump's saying. It's like Trump's just like, leave and I'll take it. It's like, they don't want to do that. Clearly they don't want to do that. I wouldn't tell them to do that, but it's like, I don't know what I would do, because I can't really imagine. Like, if I was Palestinian, would I want to stay? Probably not. I probably wouldn't. But at the same time, I don't know what it's like to care that much about a specific region and like, that be the struggle of my life, is like, a foreign country killing my women and children and then saying they're not doing it. And then, just having all of your like apartment complexes blown up. Like, what are they just going to stay there? I'm not really sure. So I'm not, Trump's solution is just to kick them all out, rebuild, bring some back in, but basically own it. Trump wants to take it. They probably don't want it. They don't want it taken. Israel wants them gone. Israel's always wanted them gone, but they've always wanted the land and they've always wanted them gone. And the Palestinians just get the crap kicked out of them. It sucks. I don't like, do they want to just stay and get bombed? And I'm not justifying their removal. I'm just saying it's like, what a crazy decision to have to be made with them. And, when you look at Hamas, have you ever Googled who elevated Hamas? Have you ever read the articles of who put them into power or who funded their rise? I'm not saying they meant to do what's happening, but this is all public information. It's like America funded the Mujahideen. America funded terrorist organizations in the Middle East to try to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. This is all public information. Like, if you're like, oh, I hate that terrorist group. Okay, like maybe America's fighting them. In some cases, America is fighting terrorist groups. In other cases, America's funding the terrorist groups. Like, this is all searchable history. This is not even hidden conspiracy theories. You could find this in Israeli press, American press, mainstream publications. You could even find Tulsi Gabbard saying some of this on CNN, on Jake Tapper's show. He's shocked, but it's there. The video's still up. So it's like, I can't relate to people who just like watch Fox News and listen to Ben Shapiro and they're so jacked up. Oh my gosh, I'm debating. It's like, dude, you can't even watch local news without getting the Israeli perspective. I'm just being honest. It doesn't matter what state you're in. If you watch local news, they're pushing the Israel-Hamas war on the news, like, you know, and you're getting one perspective of it. I'm not saying that I'm not saying what they're going to say. I said, all I'm saying is, like, how did this happen? How did this get here? Who funded the rise of a certain group, or at least, you know, push for them? Who interfered in elections and made sure they got into power to some extent? Like, when was the last election the people there even had? I listen to certain people say, I forget who, but they said, this is a year ago now, they said, you know, the people voted for Hamas, so they basically are Hamas, and they need to die because Hamas needs to die, and the people need to die because they're Hamas. Like, this is real conversations people had, and I'm like, I looked up the last election. It was over a decade. It might have been like 2 decades ago. The other election was so long ago. It was like Obama era or before Obama era. I can't remember. That's how long their last election was. And Hamas did not even win the election by like 90% or anything. They barely won the election. It wasn't even a landslide election. So it's like, everyone needs, you think that's what needs to happen to the people because a terrorist organization won an election like 20 years ago, 15 years ago? That would be like saying Americans need to perish because Joe Biden won an election and everybody's responsible because they voted for him. Like, but that makes even more sense than the other one. Not saying it makes sense, but it's like that election was within the last 4 years, not within the last 20 years. But people that watch Zionist media, they don't know this stuff. And they're just like, Hamas, everybody's Hamas, kill everybody, kill. It's like, relax. Like, you know, you can go after the terrorist organization that was literally elevated by the other country and literally helped into power by certain people. And the election was forced by the other country. You never read that. So that's how they even got into power in the first place, because they were basically, you know, pushed to have an election, you know, and then they were bankrolled to some extent. I mean, that's what the press said. You could look into it, but this is all mainstream stuff. You search the right keywords, you can find it on a Google search. Like, it's not hard to find. You can find it on any searching platform. So it's like, okay, you look in, you know, Syria, the media is not going to tell you we're funding terrorists in order to kick out Bashar al-Assad because Bashar al-Assad works with Russia and Iran. So we'd rather fund terrorists to destabilize the country than have somebody in power that doesn't work with us, right? But that's what they did. They were working directly or indirectly with terrorist organizations because they've come to the conclusion, we don't want Bashar al-Assad there. We'd rather bankroll rebel groups to overthrow them, and we don't care what happens to Syria, because if there's destabilization, then Israel could take some of the land, probably Turkey will take some of the land, and, you know, they don't really care about the Syrian people because they don't want Syria working with Iran and Russia, and they don't want Syria not, you know, destabilized or under control. Like, this is the reality of the situation. I'm not sitting here playing moral wizard or anything. It's just, if you want to understand what's happening, you need to understand what's happening. Republican media basically says what Bernie Sanders says about Ukraine with Israel and Palestine. They do the same exact thing. The same thing of, like, Bernie will say the war started the day that Putin invaded, right? It's not true, but he says it. It's the same thing with Republican media. I'm not justifying anything. I'm not saying anything didn't happen. I'm just saying there's a huge history that they're not telling you. There's a huge angle to the people in power that they're not telling you. And also, with any situation, it's like any world leader knows. Like, for example, in America, and I'm not saying that these are staged, because you're not allowed to say that. And I don't believe it. I think real things happen, but I'm just trying to be clear so it's not taken out of context. Because in this country, you're not really allowed to say anything. But in general, it's like, okay, a school shooting happens in America, right? A real school shooting, people die, and now politicians can pass gun control. Before it, they couldn't pass gun control, but now they can, right? Even under Trump, when there was a shooting, Trump passed gun control with Pam Bondi sitting right next to him. When would Pam Bondi and Trump pass gun control? Pretty much never. They're pro-Second Amendment. But when there's a massive tragedy, now there's justification and public support to do something extreme. This is the reality of how the world works. If you go back in the past, you can find events where somebody did something in order to do what they wanted to do in the first place. They needed justification to do it. You know, a lot of people think that there was some weird stuff with January 6th. I'm not saying it was all fake, but a lot of people think that they were pushed to do this to then persecute Trump supporters and have the FBI justification to go after people. I'm not sure how much was real and how much wasn't. I think a lot of it was real, but also I think a lot of it was orchestrated by people who wanted them to mess up. But at the same time, people need to have self-accountability and not do stupid stuff because someone tells them to. But this is how the world works. So it's like, if you know this is how the world works, how do you not know it with certain topics? Because they just bombard you with emotions. Local news, bang, bang, bang. How could someone do this? How could someone do this? It's like, yeah, of course. How could someone do this? But what else is going on? For example, and I'm not saying anything in specific because this can apply to a lot of different things in history, but it's like, there's that one meme where the guy is like stabbing the one guy and the other guy's running away and his shoe comes up and it looks like a knife. And then the media, they basically just put the thing on just the guy's shoe, and it looks like the guy that's running away from the guy coming after him. It looks like that guy's stabbing him because the shoe looks like the knife. You've probably seen the meme. It's a great meme. It says like the media controls the minds of the masses or whatever, because they can make the victim look like the hero look like the victim. This is also what Malcolm X said, which is why you don't learn about him in history, because he talked about a lot of things that they don't want you to know. Same with Marcus Garvey, but in general, like this is how the media works. So I'm just giving a hypothetical. You could have one country killing tens of thousands of women and children, and you won't hear anything about it because they can't tell you. If they told you that they were just slaughtering tens of thousands of women and children, and sometimes they use race to make people feel disconnected. For black, they use white. For white, they use black. For Christians, they use Muslim. They try to pick someone that you're not, so you're more desensitized to it, because Muslims tend to care about Muslims more. Christians tend to care about Christians more. I'm not saying it's right, but it's human nature. With that being said, they use these groups, but you might not even know that they're killing Christian kids that are just as white as you. Not that it should matter. It should, like, whether you're black or white or Christian mother, it shouldn't matter. A woman and a children, you shouldn't want to do that. But it's like you could have a country killing tens of thousands of people that look just like you, that have your same religion. And if they don't tell you about it, you won't even know. You think they're just killing the bad guys. And in reality, then something happens on the other side and they frame it and they're like, how could this happen? And it's like, yeah, that's horrible. That's a tragedy. There's no excuse for it. But at the same time, also, this is happening that you're not talking about. And if you think that that's not happening, then I don't know what to tell people. When it comes to Ukraine, they put out a story about Snake Island. Everybody reported on it. I'm not going to go over the list. Every Republican, or most Republicans I followed on Instagram, reported on it. You know who didn't report on the war propaganda with Ukraine? Me, because I'm not an idiot. So I saw it come out. Oh, they killed everybody on this island. Blah blah blah. Oh my gosh, Ukraine! And all these right-wing Trump supporting accounts push this propaganda because they just want clicks. They're probably part of the system too. And then 2 weeks later, it comes out that story was completely misreported and all the prisoners were still alive. But that story was used to push the war. How could they do something like this? They didn't. It was made up. Yeah, there's a real war going on, but that didn't happen. And then it's like, if you're listening to pro-Ukraine media, they're not going to tell you if the Ukrainian people torture somebody or do something crazy, and vice versa a lot of times. Like, they're not going to report that as well. But Republicans who watch Fox News, they don't understand this. They're like, oh my gosh, did you hear this? Did you hear the other side of it? Do you know the reality of it? Because it's like, there's a lot of crazy things going on that you haven't heard as well. I see it both going on, and I think it sucks, and I hate all of it, So it's like, I don't really talk about war, and I don't push war propaganda from either side, because I know that people are going to lie on both sides to try to gain sympathy and, you know what I'm saying, get aid or whatever. So I just kind of, for the most part, stay out of it. Sometimes I'll post a story here or there, but I'm not trying to be like a war propagandist. Look at this. Like, yeah, there's tragedies going on, but at the same time, it's like the same way that the Democrats use skewed media to only show you one. Like, for example, in an inner city, it's like you could have a certain ethnic group kill thousands of people. And then one cop story comes out, and then they put it on the press, and everyone's like, how could that happen? It's like, yeah, it's horrific. But at the same time, it's like, did you miss the thousands of murders that have happened in the city over the last 10 years? Or did you not watch because anybody that watches local news, it's like, oh my gosh, like there's some real bad people out there. But it's like, if you never hear that, it's like, you don't hear the thousands of good stories. You just hear the one bad. You don't realize that there's cops of every ethnic group that are out there protecting people's lives all the time. And then there's a few bad ones. Republicans know this for certain topics, but they don't realize they're being played on one of the biggest topics in the world. And it's like, it's hard to even talk about because there's so much power and, emotion behind it. And I don't like to talk about war because it's just sad. I mean, Ukraine's fighting Russia, Israel and Palestine are fighting. War is not good. People die. It's just a very dark situation. You really want to figure things out and not have that in an ideal, in an ideal world. But we do not live in an ideal world. Jerry Shipe said, just make your point and move on. I just did, Jerry. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your criticism. I'll write it down on my Yelp reviews and keep it in mind. Someone said, people that feel allied to God justify killing people using God as a scapegoat for his disgusting actions. I mean, I wouldn't say that's true to everybody. I don't think that's true. I would say a majority of Christians and Muslims and God-fearing people don't feel that way, but it depends like who you believe. Like, it depends what you're intaking. If you're intaking, they're doing this and they're doing this and they hate you and this and that and this and that, then you're like, oh, get rid of them. But it's like those people, they don't even realize who they're going after or like who they're defending, they're just so jacked up on like the emotions of it. So I would say most religious people are not justifying that. But, in the Christian world and in the Muslim world, you have certain factions and certain leaders like, that have a certain skewed version of their religion. And that's what they think and tell people. And I enjoy X for that reason, because I like a lot of these pastors that have never been challenged. They're getting challenged on X and they're like melting down because for 30 years they've been preaching foreign policy with no discussion, no debate. And now that they have a public debate, their points don't really make that much sense. Because there's a Christian, I've told people this before, and I would just say for research purposes, I'm not telling people what to believe, but when it comes to Christianity and Zionism, people that are Zionist Christians, they've never really heard the other side of the story. They just think it's all anti-Semitism, which doesn't even make sense because Jesus and his disciples are considered anti-Semites to some religious leaders. Like they literally think that Jesus' disciples were anti-Semites. So it's like they're passing speech laws that make Bible discussion anti-Semitism. You don't even know what that word really means. If you listen to certain people and say, when did it start? They say 2,000 years ago. What do they mean when they say 2,000 years ago? They mean Jesus's disciples. They think they were anti-Semitic. But in general, with that being said, it's like I've heard both sides. I've heard the Zionist Christian perspective a million times. I've heard it from pastors. I've heard it from every political commentator in the world. Every single right-wing media organization that exists is pretty much pushing that narrative. But what about the other narrative? Like, has anyone heard that? There's a documentary that's been banned off YouTube, but you could still find it on YouTube. I think someone re-uploaded it. It's called Marching to Zion by Pastor Steven Anderson. He's not for everybody. He's a wild guy. But I do think he made probably the best documentary out there. That's a counter to Christian Zionism that makes the case for biblical Christianity that is not Zionism. And I believe personally, even if you're the most staunch Zionist and you're super Christian and you believe everything, sure, but have you ever heard actual intelligent debate on the other side? If you haven't, that's the documentary to watch. And then you could kind of bounce your ideas off it and be like, no, I'm right about what I'm saying. That's wrong. Like the opposing opinion shouldn't be a threat to your ideology if you're really firm in your ideology. But I think most people on that side have never even thought otherwise. Yet, if you really look at history, almost no Christian leader felt this way. Martin Luther wrote a book that I probably can't even read out loud because it'll be considered anti-Semitism. And Martin Luther is a revered, hero in the Christian world. I had a pastor friend who's literally a pastor, and he has a tattoo of Martin Luther on his leg. Like he literally has a Martin Luther tattoo. And I saw it and I go, have you ever heard of the last book that Martin Luther, the Lutheran, I guess, or I don't know if it would be considered Protestant at the time. I said, have you ever heard of this book? And he goes, no. I'm like, you have a tattoo of a guy on your leg and you've never heard of one of his books? I mean, I get it. He probably wrote a lot of books, but it's like, this is the reality of how Christians felt literally like of all forever until Theodore Herzl and the push for Zionism. This is like brand new age conservatism that so many pastors have been preaching for only the last 50 years, but not the last 2,000 years. And I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm not saying that you should feel bad or you shouldn't support a country, but you should know what you're talking about and counter it with the other side. The reason I know so much and I'm sure of myself is because I don't just like, oh, I've heard this. I hear what Bernie Sanders is saying. I hear what Mark Levin's saying and Ben Shapiro. I hear what Tucker Carlson's saying. I listen to it all. I read for myself. I dive into history. I read books. I research. This is how I come to conclusions, not by being like, blah, blah, blah. You're just being hateful, blah, blah, blah. It's like, maybe you hate the thought of having to rethink your entire life. Maybe that's what you hate. Maybe you hate anyone who challenges like what you believe, because if you believe it for 20 years, it's hard to let a feeling go or a belief go. But, I think most people just don't think about that. Someone said the Congo's happen. This is Ty on YouTube. He says the Congo is happening because the CIA has been screwing with my ex-girlfriend and I'm sorry to hear that, my guy. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard of what's going on in the Congo, and without blaming our own government, but I do feel like America interferes everywhere. So I don't think it's that unlikely that they're interfering in Congo, dude. Africa. I mean, I don't want to get into it right now, but I can't imagine what they're doing there and what they're trying to do there, because you have a continent that there's some nice places, there's some beautiful places, some great people in Africa, no doubt. But it's just like, it's a place that a lot of people don't necessarily travel. It's a place that doesn't really host big sporting events. I mean, they have like rugby and stuff in South Africa. But if you think about like the UFC, they're trying to go to Africa, but it's like the UFC has been everywhere. Africa just seems like it's, on a globe. And maybe that's better for Africa, because the more you get involved with the Western world, maybe the worse it gets. So maybe Africa knows something we don't know, and they're just purposely kind of staying to themselves. But, I don't know what they're trying to do there, or what they're trying to make it into, or how that would even be possible. But I don't know that much about Africa as far as like the Congo and Nigeria and stuff. But people, when they get involved, this is what I'll say, not necessarily about the Congo, but people get involved places and they think they could come to certain, like, they think they can make certain people and certain things into certain things that they're not trying to be. Like, it's like, at the end of the day, you could try to help people and you could try to do this and that, but there is some level of what you want to do yourself. Like, if you have a friend and you want him to do all this stuff, it comes down to him. I've learned this the hard way with certain people, and certain people I want to like do stuff with. If they don't have that desire themselves, there's not enough money and help in the world to get them to the point you want them to get to. So every country doesn't have to be the exact same and at the exact same place and doing business with each other. However, it's like people in America and people in Europe, oftentimes they think like, oh, I'm going to come here and do this and do that. And it's like, is it getting better? Like Mark Zuckerberg or someone, they'll spend all this money and they'll be like, I'm doing this in this neighborhood and this and that. I'm sure you've improved some people's lives. I'm sure you've changed certain kids' lives, and that's amazing. But is the community better? Is the neighborhood better? Like, is all this money and all these resources and all this help, government help, is it improving? If you look at certain cities, are they even better than they were 50 years ago? You know what I'm saying? Are they worse? Are they crappier? It's like, why? These are questions people don't want to ask, because you start asking these questions and the answers are not necessarily politically correct. And it's just like, why is certain neighborhoods, like I've been to certain neighborhoods in New York City where the people there are threatening to kill the people who work at the stores. That is a foreign concept to me. I mean, it doesn't matter where I've lived, no matter how rich or poor or working class. Like I've lived in working class areas before. I've lived in nice areas before, suburban areas. I've lived in a mixture. I've lived in bad parts of cities. But in my experience, even working class people, like I've done some jobs and worked around some people, they don't threaten to kill the store owners. You know what I'm saying? Like cultures that I lived around and grew up around, They don't do that. That's a crazy thing to do. Like it doesn't matter what your job is or how much money you have. Why would you threaten to kill the guy who sells things at the store? Like it doesn't make sense to me. But you go to certain neighborhoods in New York, and this is how these people act. They're nuts. Like you know what I'm saying? You could blame it on poverty, but I don't believe that's to blame. I've seen people that work low-end jobs that don't think that way or don't feel that way. How do you fix a neighborhood where people think it's okay to multiple times a day threaten to kill the person who's like, why would a store want to stay in that neighborhood? And then let's say the corner store moves out of the neighborhood if they don't want to put up with that to make money. Are the people that are threatening the store owner going to make a store and sell goods? Do they have business intuition and instinct? It's like, you know, the only way to make these neighborhoods better is like to get people there that don't act that way. Because if you leave that neighborhood up to their own devices, they're not going to be productive and they're not going to build the city. They're going to destroy the city. Like this is the reality of what's going on. And it's just like, so what do? Do you bring people here and put them there? And, you know, it's like gentrification here and this, that, there, and build these houses there. Like people are trying all these things, but it's not necessarily working. The city, sure, you know, it's getting better and the prices get high, but eventually then there's like a lull back to where it was. And it's like, yeah, these are very non-politically correct conversations to have. But my personal thought is I'm very ambitious. I love this country, and I think anybody, any mom, any family of any ethnicity, they should be able to live in a safe neighborhood, and they should be able to use the parks, and they should be able to feel comfortable at night. We think of this as this like hard to attain thing, like, oh, don't be unreasonable. Bro, in most European countries, maybe not most, but the nice ones, women can walk around at night. Like, this is not normal. Like in American cities, filth is being normalized, crime is being normalized, theft is being normalized, trash is being normalized, homeless is being normalized. These are not normal things. So am I just too ambitious? I see Tokyo, that's a nice city. Singapore, that's a nice city. Dubai, that's a nice city. Can we make American cities nice? I think we can. I think we should. I think we have a moral duty to our country to make cities better. I think it's disgusting that cities are the way they are. But look at Eric Adams. I don't think he's doing like a great job, but it's like he's not completely pathetic. They try to kick him out of office. It's like, what's wrong with the people in these cities? They can't have like an ounce of testosterone. They start freaking out. They need some like scrawny Bill de Blasio weirdo, you know, and some loser Ted, whatever his name is in Portland. It's disappointing. Like, I don't think even if the economy gets good, I'm like, oh, America's great again. Sure. America will be great again when New York City is a nice, clean, safe city that women can walk around at night. I know that sounds crazy, but there should be high penalties if you rob a woman at night, you, in my opinion, unless you're really young, you should go to jail for a long time. Like, it's not normal to rob a woman at night. You know, this, to me, I'm not a judge, but it's like robbing a store and robbing a person and at gunpoint. I mean, these have to be higher charges, I would think. But in general, it's like there needs to be like a really clear understanding where it's like, hey, we're going to help you. We'll give you some social aid if you really need help, and we'll get you a job. We'll give you community, etc. But you can't rob women. You can't rob Asian elders. You can't do this. If you do this, you're done. You're done. We'll find you. You're done. Is that hard to achieve in America? They did it in El Salvador. They did it in Dubai. They do it in Singapore. They do it in Tokyo. Why can't we do it? Why can't New York City be a city that women can walk around at night? Why can't Los Angeles be a city? It's because we have stupid leaders, a population that is not really crushing, and then, you know, nobody wants to come in and do what's right. And nobody votes for it. So I don't know how to do it. Moy Free Lifestyle with the super chat said, unfortunately, most modern Americans are low vibes. I hear you. I mean, you know, I love my people here. I think there's a lot of high vibes, but I think, you know, there is a lack of ambition. And I will say this too, because I know I talk about other ethnicities a lot, but Europeans and white people, this is my critique of Europeans and the whites, as they call them, the Caucasians from the Caucasus Mountains, according to Farrakhan. No, I'm just kidding. But to white people and Americans and, you know, people that have been here for a while, I feel like, you know, you need to have ambition in life. You need to be brave. You need to be bold. And when you're just like doing whatever, then, you know, you get passed by. Life passes you by. People take advantage of you. People exploit you. And when you don't have a backbone, everybody can just walk all over you. And it's just like, you'll just do whatever. You'll be the head guy at the company and give people vaccines. And, you know, it's like, there's no honor. You know, America, we were built off 1776 cowboy vibe, not like, oh, I guess I'll give all my kids vaccines in order to keep my $150,000 job. Like, you're a coward at that point. It doesn't matter what other races are doing. It doesn't matter what, you know, other religious groups are doing. It doesn't matter what foreigners are doing. You're allowing this all to happen because you're just so weak and such a pushover. Like, you know, I look at Great Britain. I'm not English. Like, my family comes from different countries, not England. But like the English people, God bless England. I think I like English people a lot. English men are like pathetically weak. I like Michael Bisping. He's one of the toughest guys I've ever seen. He's a UFC champion. Michael Bisping is a coward when it comes to political issues. He just wants his little cozy job with the UFC, and he doesn't want to mention anything in the UK because he's afraid of the charges. I'm comfortable saying I've seen Mike Bisping. I've been at a boxing event. I sat 2 seats from him when I went with my friends to Nate Diaz's thing. I was front row, and Michael Bisping was there. Yeah, I'm not trying to be rude because I like Michael Bisping, but you know, I think he's a coward. He could probably beat the shit out of me, but it's like, what's your job in life now? To just play it safe and not talk about your country? Your country, you know, you're talking about it. How does that make you so brave? It's like, this is what a lot of white people do. They just like let life pass them by. So it's like with myself, I never cared about stuff. I just went for it. Like, you're not supposed to rap, you're white. You're not supposed to do this. Well, if I'm enough, people will respect it. A lot of black people respect my stuff. People that, you know, helped invent hip hop like my stuff. Some people don't, but it's like, I got to be great. I got to prove my worth, and people will like it. And I got to be ambitious in life and not be a coward and not sell out and not sell pharmaceutical pills to people. And you know, most people don't do that. I think that's my critique of white Americans and white people in Europe is not all, because Eastern Europe is pretty based. And that's why the Western world is trying to crush Eastern Europe, because they're actually, the women are smart, the men are strong, you know, they're Christian, they're into their nation, and they're not trying to flood it with migrants. But it's like the Western Europe is like just too weak. And if you're a white person in America and you see all this happening, you know, I understand why people would be upset. But at the same time, I think a lot of people, they like to just like sit there and complain online. And I'm not asking people to not spread information online. If it's true, be honest, be honorable. But it's like, you know, if you're just sitting there complaining all the time, be a strong person, be an impressive person. Like when black people say, you know, my ancestors did this and that and this and that, and they take credit for it. Sure, be proud of your ancestors. Absolutely. But at the same time, it's like, what are you doing? You know, there's black people in America today that are accomplishing a lot. If you're not doing anything and you're just taking credit for your ancestors, it's like, it's a lot less impressive than the hundreds of people that I've watched do incredible stuff and that, you know, are crushing. And it's the same thing with white people. It's like, you could take credit for what all the ancestors have done, but if you're not actually doing anything, maybe that's why the present moment looks like it looks. Like that's what it seems like to me, without being too rude. It's like everybody's just like, whatever. And it's like, do you think you just deserve safety because you want it? Do you think you just deserve a country because you want it? You like Trump, so you think you deserve the America you want because you just vote for Trump? It's like everybody's got to crush. And when everybody starts crushing and being strong, then, you know, all the stuff, all the nonsense goes away. Someone said, you really don't like migrants, do you? It has nothing to do with liking or not liking. It just has to do with what's going on in Europe. The countries are being flooded with migrants and the entire culture is shifting. And you're allowed to say that the culture is shifting for the better. And if you're allowed to say that, why are you not allowed to say that the culture is shifting for the worse? It's not because migrants are bad. It's just, how are you bringing in? Who are you bringing in? At what rate? For under what premise? Is there a strong system of immigration? Do you have laws where you're allowed to talk about it, or do you get punished for even mentioning it? So it's not that immigration is bad, but it's just, I believe the way that America and Europe has facilitated legal and illegal immigration over the last couple of decades has been bad. It doesn't mean it's all bad. It just means how it's been done over the last 30 years is bad, in my opinion. That's the truth. But you can't even let me say something about white people without cutting in and making me talk about that. I was just saying, it's like, I think that white Americans and white Europeans, not all, but my critique is everybody's just too comfortable. Everybody is just too entitled, like they say, oh, white privilege and whatever. Like, I don't think of it as the left thinks of it, like, oh, you're privileged for being white. No, but it's like, how did your ancestors get all this stuff? Like, what did the great societies of Europe do? Like, dude, they worked for it. You know what I'm saying? You read history, it's not like, oh, everything was just handed to you. Dude, they worked for it. They invented things. They came up with innovative ideas. You know what I'm saying? They crushed it. They had opposition. They won. It's not like now Christians are just like, oh, God's going to come destroy the world, so I should just support Israel. It's like, that's your religion. Imagine if Christians thought that forever. Dude, there would be no America. There would be no Europe. There would be no Catholic Church. There would be no Christianity if Christians were just like, let me just get fat, drink beer, watch Trump on the television, and I'm just going to let our society crumble because it needs to happen. It's like, no one ever thought that way. Yes, eventually it's going to happen in the end times, but you're manifesting the end of your life and your bloodline and your religion because you're so pathetic. It's just like, someone said Anomaly is a clergy kid. What? I mean, that's like a witty little phrase, but I don't even know how you're saying it. So I feel like, you don't want to just be a critic of the world and what's going on. You want to be the strongest version of yourself that doesn't get taken advantage of. England gets taken advantage of because the English people are just like Michael Bisping's the toughest English person, and he can't even talk about it. He's like, it's not worth it for me. Okay, then just make money in America and let your country fall apart. Yeah, that's really brave. It's like, dude, say something. You got a huge platform. You're one of the most popular even Conor McGregor. He's not always right, and he's definitely partying too much. But it's like Conor McGregor speaking out a bit about his country. I respect him more than I respect Bisping. It's like Bisping won't say anything. He just wants UFC money. At least Conor says something. He's like, dude, this is not right. The Ireland, because Ireland is not as nice as it was 30 years ago, and Conor knows it. So it's like, that's what you're called to do. If you're seeing this happen, be brave, be honest, be nice, be kind, be respectful, but don't just be like, oh, let me go make my money. There's way too many all people who just want to make money, but there's way too many white people that they're just so comfortable being like a cog in the machine just to like make money. They're like, oh, I'll work for this pharma company. I'll do this. I'll do that because I get paid. Cool, bro. And everybody needs to make money. I'm not saying every pharma company is bad or every job's bad, but it's like, do you have any honor? Do you have any integrity? Do you have any soul? Do you have any spirit? I'm not just saying for myself because I know I'm not trying to be like braggadocious. But when I was 19 or 20 years old, 21, 22, 23, I had record deals. I had record label offers. I had over 1 million views on YouTube. There weren't that many rappers on YouTube. I was probably a top 20 most famous rapper on YouTube when I was 20 years old. I had that much leverage going on. I wasn't the biggest, but I definitely was probably top 20. They wanted me to do something that I didn't want to do. I could have said, yeah, you know what? I just want the money. I want to be famous. I want to get more women. I want my family to eat. I had nothing. I had no money. I had nowhere to go. And I said no. That's why I am who I am today. That's why I am where I am. It took a lot longer than it could have. I had a ridiculous amount of talent in my early 20s. And I'm not saying I'm not in my prime now, but it's like it's a little sad to me because it's like if I had the right people with me, like the things I could have done with the talent that I had at my youth, but I had to turn these things down because I didn't want to do it. And then I did it on my own terms. I never signed a deal with a media company that shut me up. I never signed a deal with a record label that wanted to shut me up. I never signed an NDA with someone who wanted to shut me up. But I'm one of the only ones who does that. Everyone else does it, and they just expect results where they're like, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I don't want to say it, but I'll do this. You and every other person, that's why this country looks the way it is. That's why Europe looks the way it is. That's like, it's just like everybody just wants money, and just like when you prioritize money over your morals, then you can't sit and expect a good country. I used to say this all the time. I haven't said it in a while, probably like a year. I used to say this all the time on podcasts. It's like so many conservatives and Americans, they want all these things. I want a free country. I want safety. I want this. I want that. What are you doing? Well, I like Trump. I voted for Trump. I like Trump too now. I mean, I didn't like him for a while. He's getting back on my good side, especially putting RFK there and doing a U-turn on, some of his policy. I thought that was cool. But in general, it's like, you think you deserve things because you want things like that. Is that how Europe thinks too? They're like, I want this and I used to have it, so I want it, so I deserve it because I like this guy. That's what you think it takes? You don't think you have to do anything? You don't think you have to be the best version of yourself? You don't think you have to inspire others to do the same? And one thing I'll say too is I notice when people are not doing much, they tend to be more radical. And I'm not trying to be, obviously this isn't rude, but I'm trying to word this right. Like people are like, oh, I'm like, they get fed up and emotional and they're like, oh, they start getting a little wilder, where it's like, if you're the best version of yourself and inspiring others to be the best version of their self, that will shift the world. You don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to do anything radical. You don't have to be a psychopath. Like, you just have to do the right thing and get the numbers on your side. But nobody wants to do that. It's like the easy way is to just like freak out and have a little fit about it. And it's like, that's not really brave and heroic. That's the easy way out. That's you just not wanting to put in the hard work and just being like, let me just, I feel that way about the Luigi guy. I said that before, where it's like, there's a lot of people that really like Luigi because the insurance industry is really evil, and that company seemed really evil. I get that angle of it, but my thought is like, he wasn't doing all these things. And then according to the story, he hurt his back and then he got pissed off. It's like, he hurt his back. He felt bad for himself. He felt like he couldn't have sex with women, they say. And, then he did it. If he really thought it was the right thing to do, he would have done it when he was getting women. He would have done it when he could exercise. It's like, he did it afterwards, probably because it's like the easy, short way out, where it's like, I don't really want to and a lot of these people too, it's like, they want to be internet gurus or whatever. And it's like, if you can't get attention one way, you get attention another way. Once again, I do think that corporations are evil, but it's like, there's ways to do it peacefully and non-violently. And I think a lot of people don't want to do these things, so they either do nothing or do something like extreme. But it's like, I don't know. I think nobody wants to just really struggle. Nobody wants to put in work. Nobody wants to be told no 15 times before they get a big break, or, they're trying to make something happen on the internet. It's like, dude, I tried for like 10 years, and I had ups and downs, but it's like, I can't relate. But someone said the more dysfunctional lives they get, the more dysfunction actions they take. Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously you have to be at a point where you're just like, screw it, and life is tough and definitely people go through some stuff. But I think at the end of the day, like, you gotta just rebound and put in the work. Cause I always said too about like good energy versus like evil energy, in the sense of certain politicians. It's like a Monster energy drink, where it's like you could drink 5 of it's not healthy, obviously you shouldn't, but it's like if you drink 5 of them, you'll be jacked up for like 30 minutes, but then you're going to have a crazy crash. It's like when you do things the right way, it's harder, but the reward is more real. It's more godly. It's more natural. It's more pure. It's more effective. When you're just anything, it's like that quick, like, let me just do it this way. It's like, for a short thing, and then a long life of, having the consequences of that. Tryhard7 says Michael Bisping thinks he's edgy because he makes fun of Christianity and says Jesus didn't exist. Let's hear him say something about the Talmud with the super chat. Yeah, dude. Like I said, I sat next to Michael Bisping at an event, and I like Michael Bisping. I like him, but yeah, no, I mean, in a way, as great as he is of an athlete, he is everything that's wrong with England. He's a strong white guy who's completely cucked on politics. He thinks it's edgy to not believe in Jesus, when really that's the thing that's probably haunting his life and preventing him from actually having a spine. He plays it extremely safe. Like, dude, him and Anthony Smith one time talked about the UK and what was going on. I like Anthony Smith, actually. He gets a lot of hate, but I actually really like Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith was talking about the UK, and Bisping was like, whoa, slow down. Oh, like, he's such a coward. Like, I think I think Anthony Smith is half black and half white. He's, he looks lighter skinned, but he's half black. And he was like, I'm half black, so I could say this. And Bisping was like, dude, don't say that near me. Oh man, come on, dude. Come on. Like, it was like he was so afraid of Anthony Smith, who's literally half black, making like a minor joke that, like, it's such a little joke. If I made it, you wouldn't even think much of it because it was enough. It was not even like anything edgy. And he's like freaking out about it. It's like, is his role as a strong English guy to just make money in the UFC and just watch his country fall apart while he lives in America? It's like the cowardice of men nowadays. And I can't. I like Thomas Massey. I mean, he doesn't look like he works out that much, but I'm not saying he has to. I'm just saying, like, he's very strong-minded mentally, and he's very strong. He's very pro-America. He doesn't. And I think that Massey's a good example of how you don't have to be loud, right? Everybody's not this archetype, but he's not loud. He's not mean. He doesn't have to be edgy. He doesn't have to be rude about it. Like a lot of Republicans, they're like, ha ha, I'm rude, ha ha, ha. And it's really like this douchebag energy. That's why so many people historically haven't liked Republicans, because a lot of people in the media just act like douchebags for clicks. Some people, it's funny when they're douchebags, like I like that vibe sometimes, but it's a little cringe. And like a lot of the women who do it in the media, they're annoying in my opinion, and some of the men. But in general, it's like Thomas Massey, like he doesn't have to do any of that. Yet he's gained the respect of so many people, even on the right, because he's just so strong in his views, but he doesn't have to raise his voice. He doesn't yell. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't get emotional. He's very inspirational. To me, if you can be anything, being like that to me is like the best background. Because I think when you are, it doesn't matter what your views are. When you're too hateful or you're too negative or you're too trolly in the sense of like you just want a reaction, you just want someone to get mad at you for clicks, it's not that effective. I mean, it can be, I guess, everyone has their own style, but I like, it's like, this is the truth. I love that. Just like, this is it. I'm sticking to it. I'm not wavering. You don't have to waver. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be crazy. You just have to be honorable. You just have to be honest. You just have to be pure with your intentions. I love that about Thomas Massey. Plus the audience would be much bigger. More people need to listen to Anomaly. I have my ways of working on it. Like I said, I'm like probably a week away now, if not less, maybe more of having a new studio. I'm going to have better camera quality. I'm going to have better edits. I have my ideas, but I'm not in a rush. I'm not in a rush to get more eyes on what I'm doing, because I've already had so many eyes on what I'm doing, and more attention does not necessarily mean more good, like I'm not seeking more fame. So I'm trying to be strategic with what I'm doing, because I'm not trying to be like a top 10 voice right now. I don't know. I'm just going with my intuition. Like, I don't like what Candace Owens does and how she does it. Like, that's good for her. For me, I'm not looking for that. And this is not like a cope. Like, I don't want people to watch it. Yeah, of course I do. But it's like, there's levels to what you're doing and how you do it. And then what you have to, like, the backlash of what you're doing. We're different people, different energy, different topics, etc. to some extent. But, I think some people, they think, like, I've gone to Republican events and they're like, where do you want to be in 10 years? And I was like, retired on an island. And they're like, no, work-wise. I was like, yeah. And they're like, what do you want? I was like, I'm good. I have everything I want. And they're like, no, do you want a show? Do you want this? Do you want that? And I'm like, they don't understand Zen. They don't understand the present moment. Like, I'm talking to them in a state of bliss, right? In a state of just pure Zen. And they're living in the future thinking like, I must want all these things. I must desire this and that and this and that. And it's like, have they never met somebody that's just content, that lives in the moment, that has everything they need, but at the same time is, making moves? Like, it's like the way certain people talk to me is just funny, where they're just like, you got to do this, you got to do that. Says you, who are you? What have you done? Have you done what I did? Do you have what I have? You think I need to do that, but I don't even know who you are. And you don't even have what I have. So maybe you could help, or maybe you could stop talking and listen, and then I could teach you something, because I have things, it's not a competition, but it's just like, Yeah, I have over 1 billion views. I reach 120 mil. I reached 120 million people on Facebook in the last month. Like, do I need more? Sure, I could get more video views. I can get more revenue through that and more eyes on my content. But it's like, am I underachieving? I mean, I don't know. I'm on pace to reach over 1 billion people on Facebook. That's a new record of mine. I could show you my stats right now. $0 in marketing on Facebook. 120 million views on my posts in the last 28 days. 120 million. I have one of the biggest Facebook pages in the world. I'm one of the most successful people on Facebook. People just don't know because I don't, I just fly under the radar. Which I'm not doing it for, I'm just letting people know. It's like, people aren't looking at Anomaly enough. I have 120 million views. I can show you my phone right now. 120 million. $0 in marketing, all organic, because people on Facebook like my content. They share, they comment. Couldn't do it without you guys. It's just what it is. Like, I don't, and that's an off month for me. Not like for that, but it's like people think I'm not working. Like, I didn't work in January. I reached 120 million people. Like, it's just indifferent. Sometimes it's videos. Sometimes it's picture posts. Like, I guess when you're comfortable, obviously I want like my business to stay stable and grow and stuff, but it's like, I don't know if you could tell, but like, I feel good. I moved. I needed to move. I needed to make a few changes in my life. I made the changes. I feel tremendous. I feel great. I feel at peace. I'm working out. I'm eating better. I'm in a good spot. So it's like, I'm not in a rush to like make people look at me, because people can look at you, but not everyone's going to like it. And everyone's going to agree. And every move you make comes at a cost. It's like every level you get when it comes to like the internet, like there's a pro and a con, that's just how the world works. So it's like if you have a job, like let's just say you have a job and you're making like 100K a year and you love your job, and then you get a raise and they're like, we want to put you in this position and give you 170,000 a year. The pro is you're going to make 170,000. The pro is it might be a better job. It might be an easier job, but it also might be a harder job. It might be a job that stresses you out. It might be a job that takes you away from your family. So it's like everything in life, it's not all good and it's not all bad. You need to like look at it and weigh it out. Someone said from super chats, I mean, just to be transparent, I definitely get money from super chats, but I don't think it's like a top 5 revenue stream for me. I appreciate them, but it's like, if I was living off of super chats, I would be broke because I don't make that much money on super chats. I don't even think I'd be able to pay my rent off super chats. I'm 100% sure I wouldn't even be close to be able to pay my rent off super chats. I don't get that much off that. But here's the thing. I'm not a victim. It's how my show is. It's how, like, if you want something new, you have to do something new. That's why I'm doing a different show. It's not like your fault or it's just, that's just not my business model right now. And I don't elicit a lot of super chats out of people. Like you got to be smart with like what you do and how you do it in order. Like Tim Pool, he reads all his super chats at the end. So people want to get on the show because it's a big show. It's a smart business model. Like there's things to be learned. Someone said Martin Luther was insane. I think in order to be Martin Luther in history, you have to be pretty crazy to some extent, or insane. Like he was insanely ambitious, right? I think Martin Luther is probably one of the most ambitious people in Christian history. Like that. I don't know what it was like at that time he was alive because I can't fathom that. But the guy definitely was not short of motivation. Let's just put it that way. Thank you, El Barbero. I appreciate you. Someone said, I live in a van. I just got out of the war with mafia. I'm why El Chapo. Okay. Sounds like you're doing a lot, my man, with your chats. It sounds like you live a fascinating life, if true. Marketing is all about how much avenues, just as much as the revenues. Yeah, I would say this too, because for a while I didn't like business and marketing because, well, I've always, I guess, liked marketing a little bit, but not so much business. You just got to find the fun and everything and the art of it. So I think you can't play the victim, even with censorship and stuff. Like you can't play the victim. You can't just want things like I want more attention. I'm not getting it because of this is that. why. You always have to ask why and figure out, like, is there something I could change? Is there something? I know some people where they're like, oh, my Twitter's shadow banned. And it's like, you never even had a following. I mean, you might be shadow banned. It's definitely possible. Some people are literally shadow banned, but it's like, there's also ways to get around it. There's people who have been shadow banned, deleted, and also they've been able to bounce back from that and figure out a way to bounce back. So, you know, I love like looking at that stuff, because it's like it could be fun. In order to, like, especially for my business, but any business, in order to still be around, you have to adapt and evolve. And I'm going to pat myself on the back now, because I am definitely proud of myself for this. You know, I've been around since 2018 doing, I mean, that's when I started doing this full time, I think, or 2019. I've been doing it full time with no backing, no help, no production team, no manager. Like, I've done this all by myself, and I've been able to make a living from 2008 to 2024. How many people do you see doing what I'm doing that are still around from 2018 to 2024? Not that many. And then out of those people, how many have done it with nobody? Very, very few. There's a few people, but almost nobody. Every major figure has a corporation behind them. They have sponsors, they have donors, they have investments, they have a, you know, media company, they have syndication. I've been able to keep my business afloat for 6 years with nothing. So, you know, it's I've had to adapt a lot and be very understanding what's changing, because if I didn't adapt, then I would have just fell by the wayside like a lot of people. Where do I make the most money? Is it my clothing? I wish. No, it's Facebook. Facebook has been the best for me personally, but I have a bunch of streams. Like, YouTube is nice. The shop can be nice. I've done well in the shop, but I need to reinvigorate it. So I'm just stressed. I'm not stressed, but I'm strained for time. So in order to do all these things, you have to put effort into it. And I need to take a day or two off and just really work on my shop, because it's been great. But it's you know, it's also like when I buy stuff, I buy it. So for the sweatshirts, those were probably one of my best products. That maybe not the best seller, but definitely like one of my favorite products. I paid, I don't remember how much, tens of thousands of dollars. I'm not really sure, to buy all the sweatshirts, maybe less. I can't remember, 1,000, like whatever. They're not cheap. I mean, I'd have to look at how many. I think they cost like $30 a shirt, so, or sweatshirt. So it's like, it's not just like straight money, because I'm not just selling them on a website where they just give me the thing. I'm buying the product. I'm paying somebody to ship them and help facilitate it. It's a lot of investment and also work, but I mean, I don't have to do that much work, to be honest, because I have someone that I work with, a company that helps. Someone said those God bless hats were cool. I bought one for my girl. She loved it. Yeah, I'm going to work on more white and black hats, the dad hats. Those are my best sellers, the white and black hats. So I got to get more. Someone said, you want more views, sell out? Well, I don't necessarily want more views. To be honest, like I'll get views. So I'm not like, I need more. It's just, I'm more looking at the business model of it. Like, what makes sense? How do you reach people? How does it work for the business? Like, I'm not like, I need a lot of views because I want people to look at me. If I could get 10,000 views on every video, but I just did 20 more videos and had the same audience, but I could make a lot of money and at the same time reach people a different way and expand my audience a different way, I'm fine with that. I don't care anymore about followers. I have millions of followers. I reach hundreds of millions of people a month. I'm not like, I don't know. I guess that part of it at this point I have figured out, so I'm not really stressing about it. Can I update us on my book? I just have to look at it. I mean, I wrote it. I just have to look at it, edit it, maybe get an editor or somebody to like look over it for spelling typos. I'm not going to like have them edit my writing. I'm just going to like I need typos and stuff. I gotta figure it out. I've done a lot over the last 2 months, but I built a studio. I'm working on all that right now, but I will figure it out at some point. You'll buy my book when it comes out. I appreciate it. I'll let you know. There's so much stuff I got to figure out. My email list, like I got kicked off my email list because I have so many emails. They think it's like fake or something. I don't know, but it's like, dude, I've built this email list. It's worked great for a while, but I don't understand email marketing that well. I do a little bit, but it's like they keep saying that I need to like clean up my list. And I'm like, I don't even know how to do that because I've never done anything illegal or immoral with my list. I've just put it out there for years and got emails. But maybe there's 10 out of my huge list. There's probably tens of thousands of people that don't answer the emails. And then the email service reads it as like, oh, it's not a real list, or I don't even know. That's a good question. Did Bryce Mitchell mess up my new rap song, or is it a go? No, I wouldn't say he messed it up. He just never sent in his verse. But did he make it more difficult? Probably. I mean, we're not going to get good press on it. Like after his little thing, we're definitely not going to get great press on it. But are me and Bryson Gray the type to not do the song because of that? No, I don't think so. So I haven't talked to Bryson about it. I don't even know if he knows what happened with Bryce, but I don't know. We sent the song to Bryce months ago and he never sent his verse back. So he fights too. So I'm not trying to rush him because he's got to train and stuff. The ball's in his court on that one. But yeah, no, for sure. We're probably screwed in the media. I guess it's gonna be a good and a bad week for me. You know, I'm sure they'll publish some very unfavorable articles, but you know, I would not abandon somebody because of that. I feel like that would be kind of like a scummy move. I've never met Bryce in person though. We've only like communicated via text or like message. I've heard he's a nice guy though. Let me read. All right, I'm gonna head off in like a minute or two. Dang, I hit over 2 hours. It's fine. Rather listen to an audiobook of what you wrote? Yeah, my goal is probably to do an audiobook and a written one. I'll probably read the book, and that'll take me another day or two, but I'll get on it. I'm writing a new song too. Like I have so much going on that like I don't know. When I get off this, I have a video that I want to edit to put out tomorrow. That's like a really good investigative news video. It's going to take me hours to edit, but it's like, I also want to write my rap song. So if I write my rap song, I'm not going to edit it. If I edit it, I'm not going to finish my song. It's like, then people ask me about the book. I don't have enough time. I got to figure out how to balance this better. Or else I'm never going to get anything done. Did you influence his behavior reading the lyrics? Reading, I would say no. I don't know. The lyrics of our song has nothing to do with what he said and got in trouble for. It's more of like a Christian theme, the song. So no, I would say I had nothing to do with that. Bryce, you know, he's got a lot of opinions and he does a lot of research. I don't think I influence Bryce at all. I'm not even, to be honest, I don't think he's really familiar with my news reporting that much. He's probably seen a video or two about like Thomas Massey or something. But when it comes to like, if you listen to a podcast, Bryce, he believes in flat earth and he like really explains it. Like he's not someone who just watches a podcast and like is like, oh, I think what they think. He knows what he thinks and he has a reason for thinking and saying stuff. I don't think he's one of these people that says like, oh, I believe in flat earth, but I don't really know why. Like he definitely knows why. And he definitely like, you know, he's probably watched documentaries and seen stuff about it. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a wild time for sure. All right, I'm head out. Appreciate you guys. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Check out dreamrare.com. I just want to let you guys know. I'm going to look at it right now to let you know what we're not sold out of because I'm really close to being sold out of everything on the store. We have black beanies. That's probably what I have the most in stock. We have blue beanies. These ones right here. If you ever wanted one of these blue God bless beanies, I'll just let you know that these do not have that many left. I don't know how many left, but there's not many, and I'm not going to buy them again for a while, so maybe never again. So if you want a blue beanie, I would get it sooner than later. I got some long sleeves. I got some shirts. Pretty much everything else, though, is almost sold out. When it comes to the sweatshirts, we only have like under 20, and they're all like XXL, XXXL. Like we got bigger ones. I don't think we have any small. Maybe we do. You could check, but what I'm trying to say is almost everything sold out in the store, and then I'm going to get another haul of products. But if you ever wanted stuff, check out dreamrare.com. And I would say pretty much everything there is like almost sold out, except for the black beanies. I could lie and say they're almost sold out, but I bought so many of those that we have like over 100 for sure. All right, appreciate it. Dreamrare.com, check it out. I'll be back. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States.